Hello, Zoids! As in, Freakazoids. Alright, I'm going to play the press conference. Oh, wow, somebody just subscribed. Thank you. Elena Monroy, thank you. So let's just play the press conference again. I actually deleted the video that I did earlier because that guy called up and said that phrase, and I didn't really want it to be out there. So we won't be doing a call-in on this show right here. I'm just going to go over put the pieces together, as it were, okay? And maybe we can sort of figure some things out. But I'm only going to do this for about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Cut to the next scene. It's 2 in the morning. You know, it's like when Gilligan would say, Gilligan, you can't, or no, who was it? Yeah, like the professor would say, Gilligan, you can't fly. And you'd say, oh, right. Not a perfect analogy, but you know what I'm talking about. All right, so here let's go over the press conference again, all right? Darrow helped me find a clear version on here. Or at least longer.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Ron. I'm a special agent in charge with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here today, and we wanted to pass along some information to you as well as the community and the nation as a whole. Behind me I have representatives from the Iowa Department of Public Safety, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office. What I'd like to do first is read a brief statement to you, and then after that I'll be happy to take as many questions as I can. A first-degree murder charge was filed today in connection with the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts, who was last seen jogging in Brooklyn, Iowa on July 18, 2018. A complaint and affidavit names Christian Bahina Rivera, age 24, who resides in rural Poweshiek County, and he has been charged with murder in the first degree. Dozens of law enforcement officials from local, state, and federal agencies were involved in the investigation after the disappearance of Mollie Tibbetts. A body was discovered early this morning in a farm field southeast of Brooklyn, Iowa. The identity has not been confirmed, however, we believe it to be the body of Mollie Tibbetts. A complaint and affidavit, which will be provided to you, will provide the details and of allegations against Mr. Rivera.
But I thought they said that the father came in and did ID the body, but that would have been way before this press conference.
Charges were filed in the Poweshiek County District Court. The case will be prosecuted by the Iowa Attorney General's Area Prosecution Division, and first-degree murder carries a penalty of life without the possibility of parole. And I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I can. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. We have confirmed with Homeland Security Investigations that he is an illegal alien, and we believe he has been in this area now for 4 to 7 years.
How did you come into contact with him? How did you get on your radar?
Well, during the investigation, we reached out to the public, as you well know. And during our neighborhood canvass, we came across an individual that had security cameras. We took those cameras. He was kind enough to give us the footage from it. And through that, we were able to identify a vehicle that we believe belonged to Mr. Rivera. It was a black Malibu. And from that, we were able to track his pattern and the routes in which he took. We were also able to find Mollie running on this video, and we were able to determine that he was one of the last ones to have seen Mollie running based on the video, again, that we were able to seize from the general public.
Investigators have searched this area generally.
I'm sorry?
Do you believe that he abducted her? What did he tell you? What do you believe he did?
Well, again, we were able to pull him in during the investigation. We conducted a lengthy interview with Mr. Rivera, and during that interview, he tells us that he sees Mollie running and was able to come upon her, approach her, And while he was interfacing with her, he actually tells us that he ran alongside of her or behind her. And then at one point he tells us that Mollie grabbed a hold of her phone and said, "You need to leave me alone, I'm going to call the police." And then she took off running. He in turn chased her down. And then he tells us that at some point in time he blacks out, and then he comes to near an intersection in which we believe he then placed Mollie.
Do you believe that he raped her or attacked her?
I'm sorry?
Where did this happen? What street?
On 385th Street
In what town?
in Brooklyn, outside of Brooklyn actually, in the rural county, just outside of Brooklyn, Iowa.
This side over here.
Well, you guys can hear this, right? Somebody said they can only hear music but not the interview. You guys hear it, right? Just say yes or somebody. Okay. I don't know what they're talking about. My audio doesn't work like that.
That general area has been searched by investigators the last several weeks. What led you specifically to this area today, this morning?
On 385th Street or the location of Mollie? Because there are two
Yeah, I think it
different
adds both speakers in a second.
Actually, after we got done interviewing Mr. Rivera, he led us to her location. And that location was near 460th Street or Avenue in rural Poweshiek County.
Any information on how she was killed?
We aren't able to release all the information in the investigation, and so I hope you understand I can't give everything out, and that is one of the things that we're not able to provide at this time.
Investigators have been searching this area.
I'm sorry?
Did Rivera know Mollie before?
Again, I'm not going to be able to provide certain information. That is one of which I'm not able to provide.
I think there's a good chance that he knew who Mollie was.
Why was she not found before? Why did it take the suspect to lead you to her body?
Well, I'm sure you've driven around the area, and it's a rural county, and there are a lot of fields, a lot of woods, a lot of ditches. We have certainly had extensive searches throughout the county. We just didn't have success locating her. In this particular case, she was found in a cornfield, and there were corn stalks placed over the top of her.
It's kind of
And so
ironic
we just
'cause
weren't able to locate her
originally people thought it
at
was in
this
a
particular
cornfield
part of the
too, but
investigation.
in her
Yes.
town.
On the timeline, when you got this security video, when you found out about Mr. Rivera, when you questioned him, just kind of when this all happened?
Well, we got the video a week or two ago, and we spent hours going through the video trying to, first of all, locate Mollie on it. Secondly, see if there's anything suspicious following Mollie, which is what we did. And so we again spent hours going through that. Officers did a great job coming up with the timeline. I mentioned to you last week that we felt very good about our timeline. That just confirmed our timeline that we had. And then again, we were able to determine what vehicle was following Mollie. We identified that vehicle belonging to Mr. Rivera, and then we located him, interviewed him, and subsequently he led us to her location.
How long have you been talking to him? You said 2 weeks ago you got this video. How long have you been talking to the suspect before finally...
We first approached Mr. Rivera yesterday.
Did you put up a fight at all when you guys approached him?
No, he's very compliant. He was willing to talk with us, and so there was no, as you said, fight. There's no fight or any struggle of any kind.
Does Mr. Rivera have a criminal background, any charges in his past?
Again, I won't be able to release some of that information at this time.
Are you speaking a translator
Can you spell his name?
Yes,
Is he from Mexico?
we believe he is, yes. His name, again, his name will be listed on the complaint and affidavit along with the photograph, so we can provide that for you later.
Have you detected
Yes.
Since you haven't talked to him until yesterday, what do you believe he was doing in those incidents that day? Do you believe he's been following the investigation, attending the videos? Has he been aware of what's going on? It's hard to believe he couldn't follow social media living locally.
Can't really speak to that at this point. As I mentioned to you before, we're doing some more interviews. We're trying to get as much background on Mr. Rivera as possible, and so I don't have all the answers for you on that, but I know that he was working, and beyond that, I'm not sure what he was doing coming and going.
Do you think he was aware of Mollie before? Did you know who she was? Did you know where the money around her?
Again, there's certain parts of the investigation I will not be able to release, and that happens to be one of them I won't be able to speak on. You had a question here?
Reward money that Crime Stoppers has.
What about the reward money? I'm sorry?
What happens now with that reward money that was collected by Crime Stoppers?
That's not for me to say. I don't play a role in that, so I'm not sure what will happen with the money or the reward.
Did he say this was the first time he had seen Mollie Tibbetts or was facing with stalking her previously?
I can tell you that he tells us that he had seen her before, but beyond that, I won't be able to say any more about his interactions with Mrs. Tibbetts.
Can you talk about the emotional toll this has taken on the investigators? Obviously, it's been part of the community, the family, but you guys have been working on this day in and day out, and you get a conclusion today or early this morning. Can you talk about what that's like?
These are hard. I mean, we get to know the family. We get to know Mollie. We just spoke with the family, and I told them that they raised a great daughter. I mean, she was a phenomenal individual, and so we are saddened for the family. It is difficult on the investigators. However, that's what we're paid to do, and we try to do it as best as we possibly can. We're just happy that we're able to locate him, get him charged, and then hopefully come out with a successful conclusion, that being a conviction.
Did it seem like you followed along with her in the car first on the concert tour, then got out and ran along with her? Can you clean that part up for me a little bit?
As we understand it, based on our investigation, he followed her around, circled around a couple times, located her, and then began to interface with her at some point in time on 385th Street.
You know, how many was living in the area?
I'm sorry?
How's the family doing? What did they say when you spoke with them?
Well, they're appreciative that we're able to find her, but obviously it's difficult. It's hard on them. They're struggling like any family would, but they have a great support system, and they have part of that support system is the community. Now, I'll have to say that the community here has been phenomenal. They have been of great assistance to the investigation and to the family, and so they will get through it. I'm sure it's going to be hard, but we will be there for them.
Rick, how surprised
Yes.
are you that he's still here?
I'm sorry?
You said that there were two areas of investigation, one on 387th and another one. Is that true?
Well, the location where she was found is on 460th, and we believe the running route in which she was running was on 385th Street, yes.
Do you know any reasoning why, of where she was done, where her body was?
Again, there's certain things I won't be able to release on the investigation. Yes. Well, we know that she was abducted on the 18th, and beyond that, we wouldn't be able to provide that information.
How surprised are you that he didn't try to flee?
I can't.
Stayed in the area.
I can't speak. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking and what his mind process was, so I can't really speak to that. I mean, yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Yes, sir.
I know you can't talk specifically about the motive, but what can you tell us about the motive and how a young 20-year-old missing girl now dead?
So you're asking me about the motive? Well, again, I can't really speak about the motive as you said. I can just tell you that it seemed that he followed her and seemed to be drawn to her on that particular day. And for whatever reason, he chose to abduct her. So I can't speak other than that.
Sir, did you detect any signs of a struggle? Did you see any bruises on Mollie's body? Do you believe she may have been raped?
Can't speak to that as well because we don't want to be able to release that information at this time. I can tell you that an autopsy was going to be performed. That'll assist us. That autopsy is going to take place tomorrow up in Ankeny at the State Medical Examiner's office. And so we will await those results. Sometimes that takes a while, and that'll aid us as well in the investigation.
How long do you think she was dead for?
I can't speak to that as well. Again, that goes with the State Medical Examiner's examination of Mollie.
Was that surveillance video the break in the case? I mean, for a month, you've been asking the public for tips and help. Without that video, would we maybe never know what happened to Mollie?
The video was critical, I'll put it that way. Again, we have talked to hundreds of people. Over 4,000 leads came in on this investigation, and so it was extremely helpful, let's put it that way.
Is Mr. Rivera someone who was well known in the community? Did lots of people know him, or did he kind of keep to himself?
As I understand it, he pretty much kept to himself.
Did he face any previous apprehension orders?
That would be a question to be answered by the Homeland Security investigation, not I.
Anything you can tell us about Rivera's role in the community here? Did he work here? Had he been here for a long time?
He was employed here, and again, as I previously mentioned, he was here, we believe, anywhere between 4 to 7 years, but beyond that, I don't have any additional information.
Did he indicate
Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
Do you all believe that he acted alone when involved in this?
Well, the investigation is ongoing, like I said, and we will continue to look at a number of different individuals and people, continue to collect facts. And at this point, though, I can tell you he's the only one that has been charged with first-degree murder.
So I know you said that you can't say anything. You said he's been here for at least 7 years. Can you say anything about his employment history?
I would choose not to do that at this point, no.
Is he being held here in the jail
here at the Poweshiek County Jail. Yes, sir.
Did it seem like you placed the body there immediately, or did you try to conceal it elsewhere prior?
Again, those are certain facts that I wouldn't be able to release at this time. As I previously mentioned, we continue to run out leads, we continue to gather facts, we continue to analyze evidence, and we'll be able to have some of those questions for you as things go on. I got about one more question for you.
Can you talk to us about those?
I'm sorry? Autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow. However, it takes a while to get the results, and so that may take anywhere up to 4 to 6 weeks. We just can't predict that, but the autopsy will be tomorrow.
We talk so much about the Fitbit. Is that helpful at all?
I can tell you that we, as I have said previously, that we examined her digital footprint, and certainly that played a role in our investigation. One last question, and that's it.
Any advice to young women out there? Anything they can do to protect themselves? Women that are out jogging, women that might be vulnerable, technology-wise, app-wise, phone-wise, shipping-wise, anything you can tell them?
Well, certainly it would help to run with others, not to run alone, but I mean, this is a small community. Everybody knew everybody, and certainly she has been running for months, years, and not had any problem that we're aware of. And so this is sadly a tragic event, and we hope that it wouldn't occur anytime in the near future. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. There's the press conference. Uninterrupted. I actually had to turn off my mic because I always end up talking when I see something that bugs me. But I hear people say, Gray, you tend to talk over your videos. So could you look it. I do what I want to do, but just to be kind, I turned off the mic. All right. All right. So let's look at the affidavit here. So we're going to do this again from earlier. I think the key things to look at are on here. Someone mentioned in the last one. I scrolled all the way down to the narrative part, but there is a important part right here. It says the offense took place on the 1900 block of 385th Avenue. Okay, you see that? All right. So now let's go down here and read this first part. It says, on 7/19/2018, Mollie Tibbetts was reported as a missing person to the Poweshiek County Sheriff's Office. Shortly after Tibbetts was reported missing, video footage was collected. So they've had this video for a long time, from an area on the east side of Brooklyn, Poweshiek County, Iowa. The video was from the evening of July 18th. Right, so that's the night before. So let's just say 7:30-ish, 7 or 8, something like that. July 18th, 2018. After review of the video, it was determined that Mollie Tibbetts was running near the area of Boundary and Middle Streets when a dark-colored Chevy Malibu was in the same vicinity. The dark-colored Chevy Malibu can be seen numerous times driving back and forth in the area. It was determined through other investigation that the dark-colored Chevy Malibu was connected to Christian Rivera. Okay? But now let's go to Google Earth here. All right? All right, so after the last live we did, I looked around for a surveillance camera. Because you remember I couldn't find one, but I think I actually did find one. And it matches absolutely perfectly to what they were saying. Okay, so this is the route apparently that she took. Isn't that cool that I put the screen on the right side this time so you can actually see it? Let's see. Let me make this full screen now. Full screen. All right, that's good. So I'm just filling in some gaps here. So she ran this direction. At 5:30, she was dropped off by her brother. 7:30, called her mom about what they're going to have for dinner, right? You guys all remember that part. Then she starts jogging, and then at 7:30, Roger Thompson sees her right on this corner, but doesn't know if she went that way, north, or south. I'm going to just guess that she went south and then took a quick left because apparently this guy named Nate Hopwood saw her right there. Then she runs down this way and then heads up this way. She's going to go on a nice little jog out into the country. So she runs by here. So I don't know if she was doing loops or what she was doing. But anyways, she's going this way, and then a black car is seen sort of waiting for her, like as if he knew she was going to go on that jog. So he was doing loops, probably making sure she couldn't see him, that kind of thing. I don't really know. I'd have to see the video to make a better determination. But look at this spot right here. This is the exact spot. This is Boundary right here, and this is Middle Street. And this is right where they said they could see her. So look at this. Tell me if you think I got this right here. Watch this. So here's street view. And I was looking at this shed right here. And then I zoomed in. And by God, I think that's a surveillance camera right there. And it's pointing right at... Look at that. I don't think that would be a light. That looks kind of like a surveillance camera to me. The way and it's pointed out. And look where it's pointed. Right at that intersection right there. It's exactly the spot. You see that? So here's the bar. Here's that camera, and it would be filming straight this direction, and this is Middle Street, Boundary, and running by right there. What do you think? It kind of could be a floodlight, but it looks to me like a surveillance camera, and it's far away, so they weren't able to make out everything perfectly. I don't know why you'd have a floodlight right there. See, if I had an open barn like that, I'd want to have a surveillance camera on it. But yeah, I can't say for sure because I can't actually, get there. And I know what floodlights look like too, but there's also surveillance cameras that look just like that, where they go out and, I'm just guessing at that because I couldn't see any other ones, and it works absolutely perfectly filming right at that intersection. And none of these other buildings have surveillance cameras on them. That looks like a floodlight right there, if you're going to look up there. Right there. Or a light of some sort. So that's what I have for you on that. And let's say... So, she goes running this way. Then the car follows her down this road here. And is following her along. And this is the address that was listed on that document as a place where the abduction took place, or the offense. And I'm not sure, when I say 1900 block, perhaps that includes some of this area right here, and that is a pretty barren area here. And if you look, this is that area that they had, and it's pretty close, right? It's pretty close to that circle. And that was just me eyeballing it too, so it could have been more like this. I don't know. I think that law enforcement probably did what is called a data dump from cell towers. I think that they were aware early on, they knew what vehicle it was. Then they started tracking the vehicle, probably using his cell phone. I'm just guessing here. And trying to figure out where he had been. All right? So the thing is they probably tracked his vehicle at some point down to this area down here that let me turn this off. All right, so I think that they actually at some point tracked his vehicle in this area. Remember, because they searched this whole area right here at one point. Those pinging isn't like down to the foot, right? When you triangulate, you can get it pretty close like that, but if you're just getting a couple different directions, you can only guess. So they checked on this road here, and may even have checked that road too, because they already knew who that person was that owned that black truck for a long time. They say that they just figured it out, but or no, they finally talked to him yesterday. But they probably were tracking him the whole time. So they had his ping information, and maybe just figured out that he worked at one of these farms down here, and they went and checked up and down here. They probably, perhaps they didn't go all the way down here, but if they knew that he worked at one of these farms, of course they would look here. But apparently she was covered with a bunch of corn leaves and so forth, and they just didn't find her that first time. Okay, but that's a pretty long street right there. And the reason earlier today that I determined it was right in this spot was I took a overlay. First, Vic sent me one, and then I got one from Darrow that was better, had a better map behind it. And if you watch, what I'll do here is I'll turn up the opacity of this map, and you can see, look how accurate that is. Like, see this stream right here? Look how it goes in right from the side here, curves around like that. Now watch when I turn it down, it stays exactly the same. There's zero. It's absolutely right on the money. And it's even, like, look at the little squares on these county or whatever. I'm not sure what you call these little parcels or whatever. But watch. Those are even the same. So for some reason, the overlay just happened to work perfectly when I brought it in. It was crazy, right? So I'm assuming when the FAA blocks an area, they do it from the very center of where the object is or the person is found, and they want to, it would be from the center. It's not like you'd find her over here and then block out this area. You probably got the GPS coordinates. Then they do a specific, as a matter of fact, we could probably even determine how much of a space. So let's just eyeball this. I'm not sure this will work because it's on a, yeah, just a second here. Let's try right from the edge there to about right there. Yeah, about 2 miles, 2.19 miles. Right, so maybe it's like a 2 mile radius all the way around, 2.2. And so I decided that I'm just eyeballing the middle, you know, so that looks pretty much like the middle. Maybe it's, you know, a millimeter one direction or not, right? So now we're going to turn it off, and now you can go down to where that was, and it looks like you're right next to some cornfields right there. And I don't know if it's like looking at, there's some images that I have actually from that were sent to me. Again, Darrow sent me some better copies of that. Just a second. I'm going to get those. And I think they were just having people check the car wash because that would be something somebody would use. They mentioned that. I don't think they had anything specific at that car wash. I don't know for sure about that. Of course, I mean, this case was lacking in knowing anything for sure. Today was the first day of some clarity. All right. This image right here was supposedly taken by, you know, somebody in law enforcement was near. I actually think right here they've already extricated her body from the cornfields, and she's probably laying on a tarp or something there, and people are looking at her. Now, I don't know if they brought her father out there to identify the body. I heard that earlier, but then that officer at the press conference, which would have been after that, said that they hadn't identified her yet. So I don't know if this is, there's a person, I mean, it's so blurry, I don't even want to guess, but it kind of looked like maybe that was the dad there, or, you know, I don't know. I'm just not even going to worry about something like that. So here we go. It looks like there's some cornfields there. I don't know what this is here. Doesn't look like corn on this side. So unfortunately, there's no street view. I could have absolutely nailed it down to the exact spot that they were standing. But I think that this is probably corn at different times of the year. So watch, I'll go to a clearer version. This is September 2011. That sort of looks like that could be corn right there. Right? And maybe even that too. And you do see that fence in there. So if I put that back up, that wasn't it, just a second. Yeah, there's like a fence right there and a couple white poles. I don't know. Unfortunately, you can't see any of that stuff from above. Sometimes you can kind of make out if you can see the shadow of the pole, for example. There might be something right there, but that's not the right spot. Yeah. So I just think it's somewhere in this area right here. I know that you can see a tree back there for sure. Like, see how there's a rise and then a tree up there and some wires? So I wonder if that's something we could try to do. Like, get down low and observe the terrain a little bit. Because I do have the terrain on. What's funny is yesterday, before we even had this image, and before I used the FAA information, I saw that the medical examiner car drove further than I thought, and I actually was all the way over to this house, this barn right here, and I was thinking maybe that was the tree, you know, because I was looking at a different time of year, and even, you know, I thought maybe that one, but that's too close. It would have to be something like you know, maybe this or something, and you're looking at it like that, but I don't know, it's pretty difficult. Without having street view, you can't really figure it out. I mean, you can, but it would take a while. All right, let's see. So a lot of you have followed along this whole time on my live videos, and you can see that, I mean, my Google Earth looks like a, you know, Einstein's chalkboard, right? I mean, it's I'm not equating myself to Einstein. I'm just trying to tell you. Yeah, you see that? So you've got about 100 different pins on here. Basically, I don't know if this Devin Riley guy actually saw her running. What do you think? Because it seems so out of place now. Like, she was running, I guess it's possible she ran like this and then down like this and then up and around. The thing is Devin Riley said he saw her running this direction, like that. And that made sense with the car wash information, but now it doesn't make a lot of sense to me now. I think everything happened up in here. That's about a 3.5 mile run out in that direction. And remember, he didn't describe her perfectly either. He might have even just been remembering a different day, you know, and thought it was that night, because he said he saw her there a few times. And let's see. So what I think is that she went running right here at about 7:30. Roger Thompson saw her at about 7:30. We don't know what time Nate Hopwood saw her, but I think it's fair to say it was after Roger Thompson. And sometimes she was walking and so forth, casually. And so he saw her here, and that kind of makes sense to me that she just kind of ran to the end here, took a left, and then that's when the car followed her. Or maybe she did some sort of looping type of thing, because they said they saw the car multiple times. All right, and her mother lives right here. So let's say she went running, and maybe she was just going to run back, go like this, and head over to her mother's house to have those brats they were talking about. Yeah, it could be H22A25. See, you got one of those other names too, man. Come on. We got to get some names that I can say really quick. H22A25. Yeah. Watch, in about a month from now, I'll remember it perfectly. Yeah, there's no way we should deport the guy. Yeah, forget it. Yeah, so you guys remember, I think it's very interesting that they went there before. And I think that's why they went in that area before, because they knew who they were looking for. And I mean, it's amazing how precise sometimes the FBI is and law enforcement. Yeah, they didn't find her the first time because she was way down at the end and buried, and they just didn't see her in there. Okay, maybe they didn't bring the dogs all the way down at that end. They were probably more concerned about the water, ponds, things like that. That makes sense. So, wow, so law enforcement was parked here. You remember that? That one day they were actually parked here and right here, and they were looking all around in this area here. And she ends up being found on that same road right down here. That's crazy. I remember we were doing street view right here. You had the Lincoln Wildlife area. You know, everybody was so focused in on Cheney. Did you notice that I didn't talk about him much at all? Right? Because to me, it was sort of like a red herring kind of deal. Like, oh my God, look at it. It's Cheney. Yeah, it's Cheney. Look, it's so obvious. Really? It was almost too obvious to some, right? Yeah, he's out mowing his lawn and everything, and he said, hey, take a lie detector test. I don't care at some point. You know, so you had him. You had a lot of people looking into every single person, saying, I bet it was Dalton. He came back. Me and Dara were even talking, God, what if it did turn out to be Dalton? I said to her, if anybody's right that it was Dalton, it was pure luck that you guessed that. Because there was zero evidence of any kind that Dalton had anything to do with it. All right? Zero. None. Oh, but the nefarious Snapchat at 10 o'clock. Ooh. Yeah. Yes, we all thought it was a little bit strange that he didn't, when he got it, he didn't message back, right? Everybody thought that. But, you know, they've dated for 3+ years. Maybe just it was late, you know. Who knows? Maybe he thought it was late for her. I don't know. But it doesn't equate to murder. Like, bang, oh, it's a murder because he didn't respond to a Snapchat. There was a lot of weirdness in this case, right? It's weird that when Mollie was dropped off by her brother at 5:30, that part isn't weird, but the next morning, he was supposed to pick her up at 7:30. He texted her saying, hey, do you need a ride home? Because she needed the car to go to work. And it's weird that he never checked to see, like, wow, how come he didn't contact me? How would you get to work? That's weird, right? But maybe that's just sort of the way they are. Oh, if she doesn't contact me, she obviously found another way. And then she was supposed to go over dinner that night. And she was definitely expected for dinner, didn't show up. The mom didn't check with her to see why didn't you show up. And Mollie obviously didn't check because at that point she probably wasn't alive, right? So the thing is the mother didn't think it was weird because that was sort of typical. Sometimes she just wouldn't show up, right? But a lot of us think that's weird because our families aren't like that. But see, that's one of the things I see a lot in comments. People will say, well, I wouldn't do that, so therefore, listen, I don't care if you don't do that. You know, other people do that, do things. Like people say, oh, man, I locked my dog in the basement. I don't do that. I let my dogs run around the house. It's almost like a self-serving comment. They want everybody to know what a great dog owner they are, instead of actually just trying to really think about the case, right? Next time, just look at the case itself. Don't try to be like, oh, wow, I'm so much better than that person, right? It doesn't matter what you do. If it's something that's very bizarre and unusual, then bring it up. But when it's just not what you do, don't bring it up. It's not, nobody wants to hear it, okay? I don't know if it's that eloquent, Jim. I'm just telling you what I think. I think, I mean, eloquent like Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah, that's right. I'm not sure what a shore is. I'm not sure what that means. Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes us different. But here's the thing. Do not, just think about it for a minute. Like I just had the interview with Mike and Becky Patty, right? Most people thought it was great the way it was. I actually intentionally focused it more on the kids because I think that's something that's missing. And I think that might actually perhaps tug at the right person's heartstrings at some point, okay? But you see people in the comments, even now, after that video, and they say crap like, oh man, I'd never let my kids go across to that bridge. I'm such a great mom. I'm so wonderful. No, you're probably a pampering idiot who your kids walk around. They probably have a straight jacket on, and they can barely move because you got them on a leash all day. All right. Some people just, in a town like that, people were allowed to play like we used to get to in the 1970s. You remember that? Remember that? When we used to be able to actually play, ride bikes, and go somewhere. You can forget that now. That's what's great, that in a town like that, they were still able to do that. But as you heard in the interview, that's now gone. The innocence of that town is gone forever. And hell, people will start like chaining their doors shut, looking through the peephole to see who's knocking on their door. It's absolutely sucks. All right. It's horrible. All right. So I just hate the high and mighty types who show up all the time and say, oh, gosh, I wouldn't do that. Well, who cares what you wouldn't do? Maybe something would happen to your kid because they wouldn't know how to react in any situation at all because you helicoptered them around everywhere they went. Probably had a leash on them when you went to the grocery store. Well, Gray, that's really a common technique these days with all the... Oh, boy. Yeah, so we actually had this time where we put all these cell tower cell tower locations. I found them all, and it really sort of made sense. And I think they probably did do some data dumps. And just really try to figure out where that guy... They were trying to figure out where different cars were going. But it sounds like early on they had a video of his car. Video of his car. So they probably took his... What they probably did was they got his license plate. They knew who the owner was. And then figured out what his cell phone was. And then tracked him. If they didn't have that... Then what they did was they probably put something on his car at some point after they realized that could be the car and tracked it around and saw that it went up and down a certain street and they were looking there. They've been really solid with the timeline for a long time. And I think I know why. Basically, it's this simple. She went jogging. And she was on surveillance camera right here, and she never came back. So they know that she was jogging right to here, and they never saw her again. So that means she was kidnapped sometime shortly after this exit right here. And they think it was right in this area. And I think they only have this part mapped now. I bet you he said where it was. Yes, Stephanie. What do you want to ask me? Wait, that was too robotic. Yes, Stephanie, that's too fake. I can't do the three bears. Pick the one in the middle. What's the question? What does data... Oh, it just means like they take the cell tower ping information or any phones that connected to the cell tower and load it up into a database, and then they start looking for ones that might meet a certain, start putting out a pattern. But it's really they do whatever they can do with the data that they get. They look through it. So let's say you did a data dump on a cell tower, and then you look for cell tower pings at 8 o'clock at night-ish, between 7 and 8:30, maybe even 9, and you might only have 10 or, that's how you can start sorting it. So you might do the whole day, and then you select a time frame, and you go, oh, look at this car was in this area. And then it pings again over down here, and you're sort of tracking different locations of that same cell phone pinging on different cell towers, and then you can sort of get a direction. For example, you could take a cell phone, a cell dump from this tower right here, right? And maybe all three of these. And then you see if a car drove by, it would start pinging on different sides of the towers. And it actually says on there which quadrant on the cell tower it pinged from, right? So then you have these ones here, and if you see that same cell phone, like let's say at 8 o'clock it was here, and then 8:07 this tower picks it up, then you can tell that cell phone was moving in a specific direction. So I think her Fitbit and her cell phone are hopefully, I don't know what the deal with their cell phone is. It feels like the killer would have noticed that pretty quick, because apparently she put it in her hand a lot, So the Fitbit might have been seen as maybe a watch or something, and he didn't know what that was, so that could have lasted longer. Do you see what I'm saying? Sorry for the long, drawn out answer. That was my Captain Kirk. Do you think that? Yeah, I think she was definitely. I would say. I thought maybe she was strangled, but it could have been something like blunt force trauma, and then he probably assaulted her. Yeah, it's kind of weird too, because I don't know when. I actually think he somehow got her into his car alive, and probably had one of those guns he owns, and put it on her, and then later killed her. I think it's way more nefarious than he's making it sound. See, what's amazing to me is that he's telling the police this, really crappy story, right? But with this sort of blank spot, and that's where all the real nightmare happened, inside of that. Okay, and that's same thing Jodi Arias did. Remember? Oh wow, I don't remember the 27 stab wounds and me almost cutting off his head part. I only remember shooting him when he was coming at me. Right. Okay, now let's take a look at the killer himself, all right? Here is his Facebook page, right? Right there. Christian Bahena Rivera, right? There he is. Now, if you look at this image right here, there's a child here. And apparently, this lady here is the mother and was the girlfriend of him at the time. Ah, my beautiful baby girl. So this was his girlfriend at the time, okay? Now, if you go to her Facebook page, go to the friends, and on hers you can't do it. Looks like she locked that down, but let's do this. I'm going to go to Jake Tibbetts' Facebook page, right? Friends. And look at that. Jake Tibbetts has her as a friend that was used to date her boyfriend. I mean, the guy that the killer. So this lady right here, Dayanara, has a child with the killer and is friends with Jake Tibbetts. However, she's also friends with, I believe, So this is Mollie's page. And look at that. She's friends with Mollie too, right? So the guy that killed her was friends. I actually think that she knew this guy, all right? I think that she knew who this person was. So I think that that theory about it's somebody she knows, and earlier I thought I was wrong about that, but now I'm starting to think, okay, well, you know, it's starting to make sense. Now I think she's with somebody else now because she had another baby with a different person, but this is 3 years ago, that Facebook page that we were just looking at. All right? And I'm putting this out there because I think this is relevant and factual. It's real stuff. It's not invented. So we can look at this now. Look at, he's got, you know, maybe he had one of these weapons in the car and got her to not to shut the hell up, is what he would probably have said, right? I actually don't think that they got in a fight on the road. I think he probably ran up behind her. You know, this is an AK-47. This is a AR-15. I don't know what this is over here. Can't see it very well. So there you have it. Isn't that crazy? So apparently there is a very, you know, she's Mollie, and let me see if the other brother has her as a friend. Hold on. No. So it's just Jake and Mollie are friends with that girl. Now, she probably lives in that town, right? So she would know her, and maybe at the time the boyfriend met her. Her boyfriend, the killer, met Mollie. I would have a hard time not believing that if Mollie is a Facebook friends with his ex, that he wouldn't know her. Don't you guys think the same thing? Oh, I've already taken it off. Just a second. It's here. It's Monarrez. Dayanara. Look at that. Rennie made it even with her tooth being pulled. Well, you missed the good stuff because I'm not going to be on here much longer. I think I'm going to come back on at 9 o'clock my time in 2 hours to do more of a... And then we can have callers again. Hopefully they don't end up being like the caller that called in when we had that live earlier. I had to delete that one. Yeah, but I think that we're going to find out that he knew who she was, and he knew that what her jogging route was. He was aware of it, and then planned this all out, waited for her to get to a certain spot. I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been if any part of his story that he did tell is true. I mean, he actually admitted that, oh, I started running. I parked my car, got out and started running behind her, and she grabbed her phone and said, I'm going to call the cops if you don't stop. And then he blacked out. Right. Of course he blacked out. Of course. All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully that'll be a good update. You can go check it out. The entire press conference is on there. I went through where I think there might be a security camera right here for those late, the people that showed up late. I don't know for sure because I can't see it closely, but I think this might be a security camera here. You know, it could be a light, but I know security cameras that look like that too. And if that is true, it makes sense that it would film exactly where the police said they have film of her running by and the black car. Okay, so that makes sense to me. All right, everybody. Thank you for showing up. And listen, I want to say thank you to all my moderators, especially Daro. She's really helped out with getting me links. And you guys see her in there. I don't know what the hell it is, man. I think she's connected to, like, her veins are connected to the internet somehow. Like it's some kind of, almost like a robot, a cyborg. There you go, a cyborg. It's crazy. Like you ask her, hey, do you see where that link is? Bang! It's right there. Okay. Anyways, everybody, until next time. Be safe out there.